that. And by the way, you do think they're great, are they not?
Yes, they're very tasty.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay, so Callie Crossley, I think it's our buddy Julio who wrote this piece about Puerto Rico. Yeah, he's great. He does a lot of work on your show.
Yes, it's one of my regular contributors, Julio Ricardo Varela.
Yes, I should have said his last name. Julio Ricardo Rivera. Well, in any case.
Varela.
I'm sorry.
That's why you didn't say his last name.
Okay. It's Julio. Let's just stick with that. Anyway, because he used to call us.
Yes, he did. He was great. And is great.
But he's talking about comparing the fight in Puerto Rico for statehood with what went on in Selma. So what's he talking about?
Well, actually, this was inspired by John Oliver, the comic on Comedy Central, whose show last week tonight made, I thought, a brilliant comparison at the moment of the commemoration in Selma, the fight for voting rights for African Americans in this country. And he took President Obama's words that, the work is not over, and this is John Oliver, and said, hello, there's some work to be done in the territories. We're talking about Puerto Rico, Guam, American Samoa, and U.S. Virgin Islands. People need to be reminded, and Julio and I actually have talked about this a number of times on my show, none of those people can vote. Now, they can serve in the United States services, as they do, disproportionately, by the way, but they cannot vote.
After they serve?
They cannot vote.
Wow.
None of them cannot. This is an ongoing inequality, which stems from a ruling way back when by the same guy who wrote the separate but equal missive for the United States, the same judge on the Supreme Court, which I did not know and find fascinating. So the links are there. This is the quote from the guy. Here's why he said it. It's purely racial. He said, the guy who said that, you can't, it's called Insular cases, by the way. And the reason that these people should not be able to vote, because he said these possessions are inhabited by alien races, meaning the territories, differing from us in religion, custom laws, methods of taxation, modes of thought, the administration of government and justice, and thus the Constitution does not fully apply in the territories. Now, that's what this guy said, a gazillion years ago, the same one that wrote the separate but equal segregation policy.
Speaking of John Oliver, who is a genius, if I might say, here he is on March 8th, on last week tonight. He's talking about exactly what Callie's talking about, the lack of voting rights in the U.S. territories. Listen to this.
We'll begin in Puerto Rico, whose citizens are Americans, a fact that comes as a surprise to a shocking number of people, as we learned when Sonia Sotomayor was named to the Supreme Court.
Sotomayor, a Bronx native, is the daughter of Puerto Rican immigrants.
She was a first-generation American, the daughter of Puerto Rican immigrants.
The daughter of Puerto Rican immigrants.
She is the daughter of Puerto Rican immigrants.
She's the daughter of Puerto Rican immigrants.
No, she isn't. She's the daughter of Americans who moved from Puerto Rico. If Puerto Ricans are immigrants, anyone who moves anywhere is an immigrant. Hey, bro, could you help me immigrate apartments on Saturday? I need to immigrate a couch up 2 flights of stairs.
I haven't focused, I have to admit, much on the whole Puerto Rican issue, but a corollary issue. I know I'm hyperbolic, so you don't have to tell me, Margery, everything you think is the greatest outrage. The fact that people who live in the District of Columbia do not have a formal representative. What do they call the woman who is the...
well, they have a delegate in the House, but that's Eleanor Holmes Norton, but they don't have one in the Senate. However...
Her vote does not count either, by the way.
And same thing for the people in the territories. They have somebody, but they can't... It doesn't mean anything. But the people in the District of Columbia can vote for president. The people in the territories cannot.
Can't do that either.
So they're American citizens without voting power. I mean, it is Selma in 2015.
So, and the reality, first of all, for those who are listening and saying, well, why doesn't this change? We try to be as nonpartisan here as is humanly possible. The conventional wisdom is let's start in D.C. If D.C. were to be allowed to elect senators, they would elect 2 African-American senators who in all likelihood would be Democratic, which obviously is upsetting the Republicans. And the conventional wisdom is the people of Puerto Rico would do a similar thing. So it's not about equal justice and equal rights. It's about partisan politics at its worst. But it is amazing to me, and then I'll shut up about this, that it's constitutional. Putting aside the fairness issue, the fact it is taxation and everything else without, and service in the military without representation.
Yes, and as
horrible.
As we're discussing on Under the Radar, because it's one of our subjects, is that this is really going to take a movement similar to Selma to make people be aware. I think Oliver went a long way. The piece is viral now, and these insular cases by which all of this stuff was based on is now going to get more visibility because our professors at Harvard have written a book. They were instrumental back in the day in supporting this case for aliens, saying, yeah, they're aliens, they shouldn't vote. And now they've written a book saying, hey, this is what's going on, people need to understand it, and citizens are not being allowed to vote.
Callie Crossley, one last thing on this before we move on to Starbucks. What's the deal with statehood for Puerto Rico?
Well, see, that's one of the issues that I think people get confused, because there has been an ongoing, and it's there, inside Puerto Rico, there are a lot of different feelings about it. Some people want statehood, some people want a different kind of political status, and so your eye has been on that, if you will, and you don't know, or not as much discussed is just the bottom line that people can't vote.
So people are divided about the statehood issue.
But didn't they vote a couple of years ago, most recently? I think they voted for statehood a couple of years ago. I think I'm right. But
there's
whether
been a number of votes about it.
They can't unilaterally make the decision.
Exactly.
Even if they voted for statehood 100-0,
right,
the Congress would have to take an action. And
well, I'm just wondering, because their economy is in trouble, so you would think from that perspective they might be better off being a state of the United States.
But, well, that may well be true, but I think regarding the voting, that if we think that they're fighting for statehood, then therefore they must not be citizens. And so that's a piece of information that people need to understand. They are citizens.
Just like in D.C.
They're
they
just
don't
like
have a
in
state
D.C.
either.
That's right. And, they can't vote.